verse or chorus, and I'll tell you which is which. Then I'll tell you that this form is called an octastitch. I'm pants at reading music, and I don't have perfect pitch. But when it comes to writing songs, I've got to scratch that itch. When HFO goes live on air, we all expect a glitch. 'Cause every show I do, I know that I will find a hitch. I'm not expecting what I do to ever make me rich. I'm having fun with making music here right now with you on Twitch. Good evening, one and all. Am I live on the microphone? Yes, I am. Good evening to Array of Emotions. Good evening to Ryako Music, who says, how's it going? It's going better than it was last week. I think I'm kind of over me wobble, and I made a concerted effort to just look after myself and look after the housework this weekend, so I have no longer got a 4-foot high pile of ironing staring at me in the living room and saying you really need to get that sorted. So it's all done. Listen to Devon Townsend's new album, Acoustically Inclined, live in Leeds 2019, as I was doing my ironing, and that really helped the ironing go down very well. I found a website this afternoon. It's called isitstillstuck.com, and the answer is yes. It's still stuck. Yes, there is now a website that you can consult on a minute-by-minute basis to find out if the cargo vessel is still stuck. And yes, it is. They reckon, what did it say on the site? It's something like the costs of this are currently several $1 billion. It's insane. Didn't they say they were expecting it to get unstuck tomorrow, says Array of Emotions. News to me. Really didn't know. To be honest, I've not been following things particularly closely, but the fact that the crew had drawn a gigantic cock and balls on their GPS trace before they entered the Suez Canal makes me think they weren't exactly taking the job as seriously as they should have been doing. Anyway, I've just remembered I promised you something on Thursday's show, didn't I? So that's me in full personal protection gear on the left, standing next to Jerry Fletcher, the actor who was our presenter to camera. And Jerry was, he says, consulting his notes again, Gordon Livesey on Emmerdale. He was also a police constable in Coronation Street, or crops up from time to time. And when Sean Bean went to New Zealand to film Lord of the Rings, basically people said, get me a voiceover artist who sounds like Sean Bean but isn't Sean Bean. And yeah, Jerry was their man. So those O2 adverts for the mobile phone company in the UK, they weren't Sean Bean, they were Jerry. So, and the two guys on the right were our minders from British Energy. But yes, that is number 2 reactor at Hisham B power station back in 2009. So yeah, as you can see, quite serious amounts of personal protection gear, and we had to go through scanners on the way in and scanners on the way out. Ryako Music says, was it noisy? Yeah, because there's an awful lot of pumping goes on to keep things cooled down. And before we went in, we were scanned. And when we came out, we were scanned. And don't know if you're aware of this, but this is a story that I was told by a certain Mr. Terry Pratchett, who used to be public relations officer for the Central Electricity Generating Board back in the day, and got the job 2 days before there was a rather considerable outgassing of carbon dioxide coolant at one of the power stations down the road from me, which he had to then reassure the public about. Yeah, on one of these open days, Chappie turned up at one of the reactor sites, and you could go through the scanners to show that people were being tracked so that they didn't bring any contamination out of the reactor area. This guy set the scanners off going in. It turned out that he was a hobbyist, and he'd collected lots of flight instruments from various World War II military aircraft, which he would repair and fix on his kitchen table. And back in the Second World War, people used to paint, instead of luminous paint that basically fluoresced when exposed to radiation. So they'd put radium on these flying instrument dials and then cover them with paint. So the paint lit up, and you didn't have to shine a light over your luminous watch to make it luminous. It just naturally glowed in the dark. And this guy was so contaminated, he set the scanners off at the nuclear power station when he did his family open day. Ryako Music says, like the Radium Girls. Indeed, they had to dispose of his kitchen table as low-level radioactive waste, and his entire house had to be cleaned. So, radiation contamination was taken pretty seriously when I went in there. It took us a good 2 or 3 hours to get ready to go in and then actually set the cameras on the tripod and record Jerry doing his piece to camera, which, being Jerry, of course, he did first take. And there you go. So that was part one of my homework, which I promised you. Now, talking about World War II reminds me of the second part of the homework that I promised you, because the UK is now on British summertime. We are 1 hour ahead of Greenwich Mean Time, which means that it's now 8 o'clock GMT rather than 9 o'clock. So we'll see if anybody turns up at 10 o'clock and go, oh, have you already started? Because I would not be at all surprised that happens. And if you turned up at 8 p.m. rather than 9 p.m, Wobby and I were talking earlier, and quite a few of the people on the February album writing mother Zoom call that she's just held turned up an hour early rather than an hour later, and everybody gets discombobulated. So, World War II, because of the UK's logistical contribution to what was going on supporting the Allies fighting the Nazis in World War II, during World War II, the UK was on something that was called double summertime. Basically, we just switched over to European time. And, all right, there aren't statistics that are comparable for what effect that had on people's road traffic behaviour or traffic accidents or anything of that like, because, let's face it, there was a war on. But, yes, from 1939 to 1947, the UK was on Central European time. And that's where we got the expression double summertime from, that I used erroneously on Thursday night's show to refer to the experiment that was done in the UK from 1968 to 1971, where we basically stayed on British summertime all year. We didn't put the clocks back or forwards. We just said, this is the time that we're going to be on, and we'll stick with it. And I said at the time that I thought it had had quite a significant impact on road traffic accidents. I was not wrong in that recollection. In fact, road traffic accidents dropped by 11.7%. 11.7% reduction in casualties on road traffic accidents. Obviously a very good thing. Did we keep it? No, because people were not impressed. Because in the north of Scotland, if you stick on summertime, it gets dark in the evenings by about 2:30 in the afternoon. So the grand experiment was terminated in 1971. And every now and again, there are moves afoot to try and reintroduce it. And I know in London they had a fairly significant campaign called Single Double Summertime. The time is right for London. And here we go. There you go. So the Mayor of London commissioned a report back in 2010 from Greater London Authority Economics. And there were quite significant benefits, they were saying. That's a history of all the campaigns that took place, who originated them, and so it's not really had much of a track record since 1971, but there were a lot. Look at that spike in road traffic accidents, right? That is associated with the clocks going forward. So it kills people. Arev Emotions says, every time we switch to summertime, there's an article in the paper to the effect of, is this the last time we have to switch times? So you guys, because, Europe's a wide place, right? I'm sure it stays dark longer in the mornings. Well, of course it'll stay dark longer in the mornings to the west of Europe than it will in the east. But Januarius Juha is on Eastern European time, isn't he? So he's 2 time zones ahead of me. So by now it's 11:20 in the evening where he is. But switching to European time and then stopping would save an awful lot of heartache, an awful lot of injuries, and quite frankly, an awful lot of deaths. So who knows? Will future generations see sense and change, or who knows? Yeah. Anyway, what have I been up to the last few days? Well, apart from a stack of ironing and listening to Devon Townsend's Acoustically Inclined Live in Leaves 2019, which is an excellent album and you should go out and get it. It's available from Inside Out Records. I have also been watching an Alan Holdsworth concert that was broadcast on German television in 1997 from the Leverkusen Jazztage Jazz Festival, which featured Chad Wackerman on drums, who has had a long and storied career with Frank Zappa's band and played with Alan in trios and larger groups for something like 30 years. And Dave Robertson, who was an amazing bass player. Sadly, Dave died in 2008. Alan died in 2017. But just watching that show, It was, Stefan says, good pronunciation. Thank you. Well, I did have a wife, now an ex-wife, who was half German, so I did have to watch my pronunciation quite well. But nice of you to join us, and thank you for following me as well. I saw that earlier. So yeah, it's an amazing concert. It really is, and a lot of it's improvised. But part of me's happy that there are still performances of his that are coming to light and being released, both on audio, and this one was a combined CD and DVD. But I miss him more than any other musician who's passed away over the last 20, 30 years, because he changed my view of what music could do. So that's the jazz guitarist Alan Holdsworth, and I've just picked up Ed Young's book on Alan's work, which I will be burying myself into. Oh yeah, that's so people have been asking how I'm feeling right this week. So I have been feeling better, and part of that was getting the housework out of the way. Part of that is, in the words of Sir Edmund Hillary, well, we've knocked the bastard off. It's taken me 14 months, but I have finally finished reading Finnegan's Wake. Stefan says, hi, since I'm on European time, I might drop off soon. I think Wobby, of all the people in the chat at the moment, Wobby is the only one who is with me on British Summertime, because Array of Emotions and Riako Music are both in Bruges. So, yeah, I won't be streaming late tonight. I've got a bunch of stuff to share with you, but I haven't done any more music, so it'll, yeah, we'll get through to it anyway. So yes, I've finished reading Finnegan's Wake, and I can't say I enjoyed it. It's one of those things that eventually it's like, will this never end? Because there's 628 pages of it, and Joyce basically rewrote every sentence in Finnegan's Wake several times to layer different meanings into it. So he'll drop into Norwegian or German or Russian or Italian or Spanish for little bursts of words, or Latin. That's less than Ulysses. I have read Ulysses. I've read Portrait of the Artist as a young man. They are mere bagatelles compared with Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake, you look at it and you just think, he's gone mad. And a lot of his friends and family thought he'd gone mad, because it is entirely layered and there are multiple glosses on the meaning of each word, and he would insert extra letters or phrases or consonants, or what's the word I'm looking for? Syllables into individual words to give them multiple meanings. It's absolutely mind-bendingly complex, because a single sentence, you find a word in the sentence and you think, oh, that can also, oh, and because that means that as well as that, then the rest of that sentence doesn't just mean this one thing. It means, oh, there's another one there. Oh, right. So that sentence now has 4 meanings and 5 meanings. And it is, he probably went really mad, says Riako Music, full-blown mania. It took him a third of his life to finish writing it. I think there are something on the order of 17,000 pages of notebooks where he went back and rewrote chapters, and he finished it in 1939 in Paris, but he'd got the basic structure in place in, I think it was 1923. So for the next 16 years, he took the basic narrative and made it completely opaque. But not kind of opaque in a way that was deliberately opaque, just in a way that led you to interpret it in dozens and dozens of different ways. House of Leaves. Thought House of Leaves was a challenging read, said Array of Emotions. Ryako Music says House of Leaves looked like a scary mess. That's probably a very, very good description of what one's initial reaction to Finnegan's Wake would be. And if you're thinking of reading it, then be warned, it's not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It is like climbing Everest. Hence the, well, we knocked the bastard off quote from Edmund Hillary. It will bite you. It will annoy you. It will frustrate you. It will get you really, really pissed off. And I am really glad that I have finished it. And hence, I am in a much better frame of mind, because it's like, yes, didn't give up, didn't surrender, got through it to the end. This is ostensibly a music stream, so I think it's probably about time we actually started talking about music. So, toys, new music. Yes, I've acquired another piano. It's a virtual instrument, as most of them are, but there was a pianist in the 1960s who I remember being on all the popular entertainment shows on the television. Very, very large lady who was who was called Mrs. Mills. Okay, Mrs. Mills basically played ragtime, as Array of Emotion says. Is that what they call a honky-tonk piano? It's very much that sort of feel, isn't it? She used to play ragtime pieces of music on the television when I was young, because the bar, frankly, was not that high for popular entertainment before the advent of people like the Beatles. She sold gold record after gold record. And her piano was actually a Steinway Vertigrand. So it's basically the frame of a grand piano, but Vertigrand, vertical grand piano, right? It's in Abbey Road Studio 2. And it's been in Abbey Road Studio 2 since they bought it in the 1950s for the princely sum of, I think it was round about 400 quid. And the lovely people at Spitfire Audio have sampled it. And they've called it Mrs. Mills Piano. And that's it. And because it was in Abbey Road, right, you're immediately thinking, oh, the Beatles worked in Abbey Road. Yes. So remember the Cowboy Saloon piano in the middle of... I'm not going to play it because copyright strikes and all that. The Beatles track Rocky Raccoon, you know, the bit with the bar piano for the fight in the middle of Rocky Raccoon? That's Mrs. Mills's piano. That's the Steinway Vertigrand. It's in... What else is it in? It's in I Get By With a Little Help From My Friends, the piano at the beginning. Basically, the Beatles used it a lot. Danny Harrison used it a lot when he went into Abbey Road in 2013 to record his album. So, yeah, it's the Beatles' honky-tonk piano from Lady Madonna and all that stuff is this. Hence the quote from Sir Paul McCartney. And it's 29 quid. And it was like, okay, well, that's going in the collection then. So I downloaded all 4.61 gigabytes of it this afternoon. I used my Bandcamp balance. So thank you for those of you who've bought anything of mine on Bandcamp over the last couple of months, because you bought me this piano. Let's go over to Ableton, shall we? There are a number of different articulations of it. There's the all together now version of it, but there is also 1968. It's a bit cleaner. Riako Music says, it sounds awesome. I like how bright it is. They keep it deliberately one string on each note, detuned, so you get that out of tune chorus effect from like cowboy saloon pianos. It's nice at the high end too. Really, really tinkly, bright piano. And there's a distant one, which is, if you whack, well, they've already whacked it up. Lots of reverb on it. But it's got that woozy, wonky, not quite on it quality to it, hasn't it? And lots of articulation on me Native Instruments keyboard. So as you can tell, close mic'd. And I love the fact you can actually add hammer noise. I'm very taken with it. You can tell, can't you? So that is Mrs. Mills piano from the lovely, lovely people at Spitfire Audio, and it's yours for the princely sum of £29 or €29 or $29. And worth every penny, I think. It's a Steinway upright grand, and you can sound exactly like the Beatles for the princely sum of £29. It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it? And that is a standalone plugin, so you don't need Contact. And as you've been watching the show for any length of time, you'll have realized that I have gone on a bit of a bender trawling the internet for free instruments that work with Contact. And I'm getting to the weird point now. And at this point, you're probably going, yeah, but the clock's not ticking. So I said, really? How mad is that? So again, you can sign up at Waves Factory and download that little beauty for free. I mean, all right, it's got limited potentiality melodically. Did you automate it to sound every hour during the night, says Stefan? No, that's a step too far for me. I actually only have clocks, and I spent hours going around the house today, moving them all forwards an hour, my grandmother had a long case clock, one of the big 6-foot high things, which I always loved and was a little bit obsessed with. But yeah, when she passed on and they sold the house, that went, and I think it was probably just as well. But you know, if you're doing a cover version of Pink Floyd's Time, you've got it's got potential-ish, but it's not really harmonically when you play a scale with it, as I will now do in Ableton. It's not exactly melodic. Because there's all weird overtones going on that really throw it off. You could probably get away with it if you only sampled one of the chimes, but obviously clocks like that, there's at least 3 or 4 different bells being struck or springs being struck for the chimes, and they've all got different harmonic qualities to them, which is really, 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 really annoying when you're trying to make music with it. Racco Music says, I always looked at grandfather clocks with suspicion as a child. I had this fear of getting trapped inside one. That's a book, right? It's either a book or a children's television series. There's got to be one. I mean, Narnia Wardrobes, somebody is bound to have come up with the equivalent portal into somewhere else through a grandfather clock. And yeah, as a small child, I may have tried climbing inside it on 1 or 2 occasions. Yeah, I'm not admitting to that. So yeah, the very, very odd but rather sweet contact instrument made out of somebody's clock. And if you thought that was weird, here we have Rosinspiel. So this is a glockenspiel that is being played with a violin bow, and this one has got potential, I have to say. This is rather nice. This is going to drive David and Mel's cats bananas. So, and again, this one is free. So this one, if we go back to it, you can download via VST Buzz, which is my free, interesting sample supplier, VST plugin supplier of choice, that Helen's Evil Twin has been recommending to me on many occasions. Have you got this yet? And this time I've actually beaten her to it, because I don't think she's recommended this one to me yet. This is presented to us by, Ben Hawkes. So he's a music student in the United States, and he's produced this in 24-bit mono, and it sounds rather lovely. And unlike the clock version of it, this has multiple versions of it. So that was bowed sustains. Then there's bowed sustains loop. So they sustain and keep going rather than fading. So, it's the test card. Back in the days when television used to close down at night, and I'm just sitting there waiting for the dart, as Neil would say on The Young Ones. And there's a staccato one as well, I think, is there? Yes, there is. Racco Music reports, cats are upstairs and away from the TV. They're safe. The test beep. Yeah, indeed. So I think that I can see myself using that more than the clock, right? I don't think I might do one about time or something or other like that. So I may come up with a clock-based song for 5090, the prequel, or I may not. But in terms of droney, ambient-y stuff, think about the stuff I was doing last week with the Inspired by Nature tools in Ableton Live. There's the Rosinspiel there, I think, will probably fit in quite well. So I think you can expect quite a few ambient pieces from me as I ease back into music production on April the 4th, which is when 5090 the prequel gets under the way. I think I preferred the bowed sustains because they have more of a sustain, but they do actually fade rather than just go on forever. And the other thing with these is that there are a rather splendid variety of settings for it as well. So you can add, well, I've just got EQ on there, but I can drop a whole bunch of other things in it. So I can have a nice bunch of compression on it. Rekka Music says, you could recite how many seconds are in a minute, in an hour, in a week, and so forth. There's Spitfire Audio, which is 29 quid. Rosinspiel you can get from the VST Buzz website, and that's free. You just have to sign up to the VST Buzz newsletter. And quite frankly, why wouldn't you? Because there's an awful lot of good stuff on their site. And Waves Factory for the clock. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, less of a success, this one. So I put lots and lots of these shows together. I edit down all the ridiculous mistakes and the things going wrong and me knocking my notebook on the floor or most of the mayhem does not see it through to the edit of these shows when they end up on YouTube. So this show will end up on YouTube tomorrow afternoon/evening when I've edited it down. And over the past, since I started doing these shows, I've been using a video editing software package called Vegas Movie Studio Platinum. And they keep on updating it, but I updated from 12 to 15 and thought, this is it. I'm fine with this. I don't need to spend any more money on a video editing package. I'll just stick with Movie Studio Platinum version 15. And I have successfully done so. But quite a few of the YouTube channels that I've been watching recently have talked about Blackmagic Video's video editing software and color correction / color grading software. Because remember I was saying couple of weeks ago that I've updated my OBS install with the Stream Effects plugin, and that has a really nice color grading plugin, which means that all my 4 cameras, and there they all are, have more or less the same color grading in them now, which is the first time that that's happened since I started setting up in here. And yes, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that I've made the studio cam even high up. It's now mounted on a microphone stand. There it is. Just there, this thing here, which means that I've now got a boom for it. So if I do want to do head down shots or zoom in on things, I've not just got the tripod cam, which is over here being fairly neglected apart from presenter mode. And yeah, the exposure on it is still pretty rubbish, but it's better than it was. I have to say it's better than it was. Yeah, so colour, more or less looking all right. Got the nice orange and teal colour scheme, and it still looks orange and teal in the other cameras. But people were recommending DaVinci Resolve as a way of very, very quickly making your videos look much, much spiffier and getting the colour grading a lot more accurate and everything else. So I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Went on the website and got even more interested, because apart from the professional version of DaVinci Resolve, which is about 300 quid or so, there's a free version. Hooray for free versions of software. And it lets you do video editing, and it lets you do color correction, and there's part of it called Fusion that lets you do animation. If you buy the full version, you get loads and loads of plug-in video effects for all sorts of weird, funky transitions and stuff, yada, yada, yada. So I thought, oh, right, this is brilliant. So downloaded it, and it's a 2.4 gigabyte download. So, yeah, you've got to commit if you want to download it. Downloaded it, and it says, okay, yeah, when you run the install program, it says yes, you need to have the Microsoft Visual Studio plugin. So it had a bunch of other installs that it had to do. Installed it all fine. Would you like to read the README? Yes, I would. Brilliant. Read the README. Thought, right, this is for me. Free video editing software that's up to date. This was like version 17.1, and it's like hot off the presses. Ran it, got a lovely splash screen that said, now loading, now finding control surfaces, now loading cut, at which point it disappeared. And the little error message came up with a window saying, DaVinci Resolve has failed to run. Would you like to report this? And it was like, ooh. So I had to delve on the web and tried a few things and ran Windows compatibility mode and ran it in administrator mode. Nope. I uninstalled it. I reformatted a few bits and pieces and then reinstalled it. Nope. So if you're out there and you're using DaVinci Resolve and you had that problem where it fell over, not at looking for control surfaces, because I know you can get, Swish keyboards that have color-coded keys that work with DaVinci Resolve. And DaVinci Resolve actually also are the people who do the professional audio plugins and desks now under the Fairlight brand name, and you know how much of a Fairlight nerd I am. Can't get them to work at all. It just falls over. So yeah, that was my less than success. Other bugs, the Native Instruments thing with Native Access going, oh, I can't find the 32-bit plugins for Massive and FM8. No, that's because the latest update of Massive and FM8 removed them. So there's no point in looking for them. And I'd not seen anything on the forums on the Native Instruments site about this. I submitted a support request about 3 weeks now-ish. Haven't heard anything back from them. So today I posted on the forums, is it just me? Am I being monumentally stupid, or is this actually broken? And within half an hour, somebody else had responded, no, it's not just you. It is broken, but it doesn't actually break anything, because if you're using the 64-bit versions, then they're not affected at all. You just get annoying error messages and native access says, I need to repair this, and it doesn't. It just hasn't been told that it no longer needs to look for those bits because they've been deprecated. Because 32-bit plugins, as I discovered when I moved to Live 10 3 years ago, which does not support 32-bit plugins, it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to completely rethink my plugin ecology for audio processing and VST instruments in Ableton. And I made that leap 3 years ago, and it looks like the rest of the world has finally said, yeah, I think we're basically going to have to knock 32-bit plugins on the head. So if you're still using 32-bit plugins in any shape or form in your music DAWs of choice, then you might want to start thinking about how you're going to move on when they stop working, because I think we are getting to the point where that is going to happen, which is a shame because there were some really good 32-bit plugins that I had back in the days of Live 8. But, yeah, not anymore. Racket Music says, oh no. And that's how I felt, to be honest. But on the whole, I've had a successful week. So it's not been bad. And that's kind of where I'm at this evening. I've got a stinking cold that I've had for the last 2 or 3 days. And it's either a stinking cold or because it's springtime, all the plants and the trees outside in the garden are waking up and releasing their pollen. And I have a feeling that this is my allergies kicking in, and they don't normally kick in this early. So I have a feeling that with being stuck indoors for the last year, my hay fever this year is going to be brutal, which kind of sucks because I can't take antihistamines because they react with the other medication I'm on. Stefan says, have to leave. Bye. Have a nice week. Same to you, sir. Look after yourself. I'm pretty much done here for tonight. It's a really short show, but yeah, I'm hoping that next week I will have more musical stuff to share with you. And in fact, so one of the things, right, so Wobby knows this because she's been running these Zoom chats with participants for February Album Writing Month over the past 4 weeks, where people basically just Zoom in a call and sing a song of theirs that they've written for February Album Writing Month over Zoom. Stefan did. And it was great fun. And I've been sitting just watching, thinking, well, I'm a producer. I don't just sort of pick up a guitar and play because I don't think I'm capable of picking up a guitar and playing. And at this point, I thought, well, why am I not? It's not impossible. Other people can sing and play guitar at the same time. I should be able to sing and play guitar at the same time. Racket Music says, well, play a backing track. Yeah, there's playing a backing track. Yes, that's, well, I mean, there are bands that I've seen on the live circuit that do that. You know, there is a reason Frank Beard wears headphones when he's playing the drums for ZZ Top, because I was watching them at the Milton Keynes Bowl in 1991 and the music suddenly went no, because their backing tapes had broken. At which point they had to play as the band that they were the first time I saw them in 1981 at the Hammersmith Odeon. And the level of excitement and energy, both on stage and in the audience, was completely transformed. Yeah, so I get backing tracks, but what I kind of want to do is maybe drums, but maybe not even drums, but just me and a guitar, and just turn into that, to that absolute singer bedroom songwriter cliche of the guy with a guitar. And it's like, okay, this year, because this is not going to happen overnight, I'm going to have to work at this. But this year, I want to get my singing / songwriting to the level where I can do both. And believe me, with all of this stuff and learning how to play all of these machines and everything else, that is likely to be the biggest challenge that I have ever set myself as a singer or a songwriter, or just as a musician in general. Racco Music says, if you work on it, I'll work on it too. You're on. You're absolutely on with that. So, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll pick some of my songs, or maybe just start writing songs from the mindset of saying, I'm going to put these maybe on YouTube is the way, because I know a lot of the people from February Album Writing Month do this on YouTube. And hats off to my friend Tom Slatter, who does very, very complex prog rock epics with him singing and playing along on guitar, and does them on YouTube. And I don't know how he does it, and I want to be able to do that. So, as Racco Music says, we can push each other. What we may have to do, mate, is actually have Zoom calls and sing at each other on Zoom calls, so that we get used to the idea of singing on camera and then give each other feedback. Does that sound like a way forward? And Array of Emotions can sort of look on bemused, and we're going, well, why is that difficult? I said, trust me, it is. And it's difficult, and it's hard to do. Racco Music says, okay, you're on. So we'll do that. I'll have to practice, says Racco Music. You and me both. And I can see it really actually informing my songwriting, because if I'm actually working towards playing guitar and singing, then Racco Music says, I'm totally going to suck the most. Believe me, I had a go earlier with the Parker, just sitting in here going, all right, that last song that I did on February Album Writing Month, can I actually sing and play the guitar chords at the same time? Nope. So I had to basically figure out new guitar chords that I could more or less play and then sing along to. And this is why a lot of singer-songwriters use open tunings, because with open tunings you get the first chord free, and you can literally just move one finger up and down the neck and get other chords. So, you know, if the worst comes to the worst, there's always that as a fallback position. So open C tuning, like Friends, the Led Zeppelin song on Led Zeppelin 3. When I first tuned a guitar into open C and played a few things, it was like, oh, that's how they do it. But on the other hand, I have other musicians that I follow that I'm great fans of, like Grace Petrie, who plays really, really complicated stuff on the guitar and belts out the songs at the same time. And it's like, how are you doing that? So I want to find out. So that's going to be my musical adventure over the next, God knows how many months, years. It will probably take me decades to get to the point where I feel that I'm competent doing it. But I just felt very left out watching some of the wonderful performances on the Zoom call this evening and in the previous 3 weeks, going, I want to be able to do that. So that's my goal. But that will be for another week. Until then, I am going to call it a day today. I am going to try and find some form of nasal decongestant because my sinuses are rock solid at the moment and it's not very comfortable. Hurriaka Music says, we can OpenSea tune everything. We can be Devon Townsend, who uses OpenSea a lot. Monday tomorrow, new week, new start. Whatever you're doing, please obey social distancing rules. Please wear a mask. I know here in the UK, some of the lockdown restrictions get eased tomorrow, but the virus hasn't gone away. Whatever you're doing, please stay well, stay safe, stay sane, and stay Wayne. And finger at the ready. I shall press the button. I shall see you at 7:30 British Summer Time on Thursday, and I'll be back here again at 9 o'clock on Sunday next week with another show, which will be the 5090 the prequel show. See what I did there? That'll be good. Take care.